Hi, in this session we are going to have a discussion on the very basics of quadratic equations. What do you mean by quadratic equations? Is x equal to 3 a quadratic equation? No, this is called a linear equation. This is called a linear equation, and this is called a linear equation in one variable, and that variable is x. Now, is this a quadratic equation? No. This is again a linear equation in two variables. Linear equation in two variables. Now then, what is a quadratic equation and how does it differ from linear equation? In a linear equation, the power of the variables is 1. Or, put in another way, if you were to draw these equations in a graph, both of them would give you a straight line graph. That is what is called a linear equation. Now, what is a quadratic equation? A quadratic equation is an equation when the power of the variable is 2. Okay, so x square equal to 100. This is a quadratic equation. This is a quadratic equation. Okay. Now note here that x could take two values, 10 and negative 10. This is a quadratic equation in one variable. And look at this, x square plus y square equal to 100. Now this is an equation, a quadratic equation in two variables, x and y. Note that the power of the variables in these equations are 2. Now, if you were to plot these equations in a graph, it would no longer be a straight line. It is more likely to be a parabola. Okay, and that is what is the equation, or maybe an ellipse, whatever. Okay, but it's not going to be a straight line because the value changes according to the power of 2 for these equations. Okay, now let us look at the standard form of any quadratic equation. We are discussing here quadratic equations in a single variable only. Okay, now let us look at the standard format of a quadratic equation. It is ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Ax square plus bx plus c is equal to 0. A is the coefficient of x square, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant. Here the variable is x. Now when you solve this, it is definite that you will get two values, and those two values are called the roots of this equation. Roots of this equation. What do you mean by you'll get two values? You'll get two values that when you substitute as the value for x, this particular equation will yield a value 0. That is what is called the root of an equation. What is the root of an equation? The root of an equation is the value when substituted for the variable will result in the equation being equalized. That is what is called the root of an equation. Now, how do we find out the root for a quadratic equation? The roots for a quadratic equation are basically found out by this relation. It says minus b plus or minus. Plus will give one value, minus will give you another value. Square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. Now, what are the two values that you will get here? Minus b plus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. And the second value will be minus b minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a. Now, let us look at these coefficients. What is b? B is the value that is given here, okay, which is the coefficient of x. That will be the value of b. Here, if it is positive in the standard format, in the equation, it will be negative. And if you get an equation with a negative value here, it will still be minus of that negative value, which will yield a positive value. Plus or minus square root of b square doesn't have a problem. B square is anyways going to be positive. Minus 4 into a into c. Now if the value of A is negative, it will be here as negative. C also follows the same pattern. A is the coefficient of x square in this particular equation, and C is the coefficient of C is the constant in that particular equation. Now let us take an example and solve for these roots and find out how it works. Okay, let's take an example. Let the example be this: x square minus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0. X square minus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0. Now what are the roots? Roots are minus b, that means 10. Minus of minus 10 is 10, plus or minus square root of b square is 100, minus 4 into a here is 1 and c here is 24, divided by 2a, that is 2 into 1. So this will yield 10 plus or minus square root of 100 minus 96 by 2, or it is 10 plus or minus square root of 4 by 2. And what will that be? There will be two roots. We can call it R1, that will be 10 plus 2 by 2, which is equal to 6. And R2 will be 10 minus 2 divided by 2, which is equal to 4. So these two are the roots of this equation: x square minus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0. Okay. Now go through the process once again. It is minus b plus or minus square root of b square minus 4ac by 2a, that is 10 plus or minus square root of 100 minus 96 by 2, which is 100 minus 96 is 4, square root of 4 is 2, so you have 10 plus 2 by 2, that is 6, and 10 minus 2 by 2, which is 4. Now let us look at why they are called roots. I explained earlier that they are called roots because when you substitute the value of each one of them in this equation, it will be equalized. Okay. Now let's see, if we put the value of 6 for x, what will this equation turn out to be? It is 36 minus 10 into 6, that is 60 plus 24, and when you add up you get 0. Now when you put the value 4 here, it will be 16 minus 10 into 4, 40 plus 24, again it results in the value 0. So what does this tell you? 6 and 4 are the roots of the equation x square minus 10x plus 24 is equal to 0, and that means when you substitute the value of 6 here for x or 4 here for x, you will result in the value 0. This particular this particular form will yield the value 0. I hope you understand what the roots exactly are. Now any quadratic equation can also be written as x square minus sum of roots multiplied by x plus product of roots is equal to 0. This is also a standard method of representation of quadratic equation. Let us look at the previous example. What are the roots? 6 and 4. And what is the equation? X square minus 6 plus 4, sum of roots 10x plus product of roots 6 into 4, 24. 24 is equal to 0. This is how the construction of a quadratic equation from its roots happen. Okay. Now we will solve a couple of problems so that we understand this concepts clearly. Okay. Now let us look at this. Can you find out the roots for this equation? 3x square minus 7x plus 2 is equal to 0. 3x square minus 7x plus 2 equal to 0. Now please make sure that you find out the roots for yourselves using the traditional formulae. Okay. Now I will look at it in a different way. Let us see how we go about solving this. This is called the middle term reconstruction method. Okay. Now from this, I understand that if I divide this 7 into 6 and 1, it will be profitable for me. And how do I do that? 3x square minus 6x minus x plus 2 is equal to 0. Now, from these two terms, I take 3x outside, I get x minus 2. Minus 1 into x minus 2 is equal to 0. Now, if I reach this far, then I can reduce it to 3x minus 1 into x minus 2 equal to 0. And if these two terms multiply to 0, either of these two terms should be 0. And therefore, the roots could be 3x minus 1 equal to 0, which implies x equal to 1 by 3, or x minus 2 equal to 0, which implies x equal to 2. This is the classic middle term reconstruction method. So, this is about familiarity with numbers. You need to understand how you can reconstruct the middle term and split it into two, so that you will get a common value when you take the a common multiple outside, common factor outside, and then you arrive at the construction of these roots. Once you get the roots, please check whether these work. Okay, so substitute 2 here. 3 into 4 is 12. Minus 7 into 4 is 14 plus 2, that will yield 0. 12 minus 14 plus 2 equal to 0. Put 1 by 3. 1 by 3 square will be 1 by 9. So this total will be 1 by 3. Okay, this will be 1 by 3. Minus 7 into 1 by 3, that is 7 by 3 plus 2. 2 can be written as 6 by 3. So the sum will again be 0 itself. Now, this is how you find out the roots using the middle term reconstruction method. Okay, so either you can get to the roots through the standard formulaic method, or you can try and divide a quadratic equation into a product of two linear equations and therefore get to the roots through the linear equation method. This is called the classic middle term reconstruction method. Okay, now this is the standard format for any quadratic equation. Now let us try solving a conceptual question. Okay, a conceptual question. Okay, now take the quadratic equation x square minus kx plus 12 equal to 0. X square minus kx plus 12 equal to 0. And we know that 2 is a root of this equation. 2 is a root of this equation. Now, can we find out value of k? Can we find out value of k? This is a standard application question. Now, if 2 is a root, then what do we know for sure? That if we substitute 2 for x, we should get the value of this particular left hand side to be 0. So you put 2 here, it will be 4, 2 square is 4, minus k multiplied by 2 plus 12 equal to 0. So that will yield 2k equal to 16 and k is equal to 8. This is a classic application question. Once you understand what is meant by root, then it is very easy for you to apply those concepts to these kinds of questions to be able to solve them. And in the larger purpose of life, this quadratic equation basically tells you that the increase in the output is basically proportional to the square of the input. That's called an exponential form. Okay, so as it is, the exponent given here is 2, that's all. Okay, so there will be a larger increase in the output when there is a smaller increase in the input. Such is the equation, what is called a quadratic equation.